Here today on my Slim Body Laser Spa Health and Wellness Show. And we just went live on Facebook, on Twitter, and on all my feeds. So I want to welcome all you listeners to be here. Today is going to be specifically about metabolic health. And it's a term that many people have heard, what it means to have a metabolism, and most people think they have a slow metabolism or a fast metabolism. And what I'm going to tell you is that is just a very gross description of what metabolism really is, what it means to have metabolic health. And it's such an important topic that I'm going to really donate a lot of my time here to explaining what metabolic health is, because I personally suffered with poor metabolic health, not realizing it. And eventually it gave me some health problems. I ended up with type 2 diabetes. I ended up with neuropathy in both of my feet. And in a search of trying to understand why this was happening to me and what I can do to correct it, and also to, if nothing correct, just slow it down, it put me on a journey of self introspection, looking at my food, looking at my habits, looking at my past, and also, getting information that would help me to reverse this metabolic decline that I was suffering from. And most people are suffering with metabolic decline. And if you see my picture, if you can go online and look at me, I mean, I look like a different person since I found out about metabolic health. I mean, it literally changed my life. Now, my red light, low level laser services that I provide at the Slim Body Laser Spa boost and improve metabolic health. And when I got it, I didn't know that either. I decided to, I saw that it worked. I saw that the application of low-level laser, specifically at the red wavelength, which is 628 nanometers, and it's similar to the same wavelength or the color of energy that you see when the sun is first coming up in the morning. Yeah, when it first comes up in the morning, you see those red light, and you also see the near infrared. Well, that's a very healthy, biologically active wavelength for humans. I mean, that is our friend. That is our gift. That is our radiating energy, pure from God, in my opinion, from the sun. And that wavelength, it changes as you go through the day. As the sun cracks the horizon and it's red and yellow light, it's very beneficial. It has a lot of infrared. And as the sun starts to go higher in the sky, it turns into blue. It has more of a blue aspect to it. Now we know. And then as the sun gets later in the day and it starts to go down into the horizon, it starts to transition from blue back to the yellow and back to the red and the near infrared wavelengths. And I can tell you that sunlight is one of the most important things that you could apply to your body daily to improve your metabolic health. It's about sunlight. And yet, somewhere along the line, the sun has been demonized. It has been told that you have to avoid it, that you need to cover up from your whole body with a long floppy hat and sunglasses. And you even see people walking around with gloves and trying to completely remove themselves from any of the sun radiation. The fact that it causes cancer and melanomas and, all of these other types of conditions. And what I would tell you about that is that those conditions and those health problems are not due to the sun. The cause of those problems is poor metabolic health. And when you have poor metabolic health, everything makes you sick. You become in a weakened state, a state which is not functioning at your 100% potential. And that, my friends, is why I'm going to go over metabolic health today. Because, if I wanted to defeat an enemy and I had all these tools available to me, small weapons, more serious weapons, or something that could completely change the whole game field, I would pick the one that could change everything instead of picking away and nicking and picking and, kind of skirting around the real issue here, which is something has to change. And when it comes to changing something about your habits to improve your health, longevity, and something called health span, which is similar to lifespan, but they need to be equal. They need to work at the same time. You don't want a long lifespan with a short health span. If the time for you to leave this earth is 40 years old and you're healthy and functional to 40 years old, you've had a very good life. It maybe not a long life compared to others, but it's been a good life. And then there's others that will persist into their 70s and 80s with very poor health. And they lose it in their 50s or early 60s, seems to be the kingpin when we really, really have to make a decision how we want to live the rest of our lives, if we want to be healthy or not. And to lose your health at 50 years old and then live to be 80, I would call that suffering. Now, medicine intervenes, and all medicine does, and this is a fact, and you can look this up, medicine allows you to suffer comfortably without noticing the symptoms. But there's a problem. You are metabolically challenged and metabolically damaged, and in some way, this is bringing all of these high blood pressure, high cholesterol, high triglycerides, low energy, brain fog, irritable bowel syndrome, autoimmune disease, neuropathy, chronic arthritic lesions, arthritis in your knees and your back, poor vision, difficulty with sensation, touch, and taste, poor sleeping. All of these problems stem from poor metabolic health. And this is why we're going to go over it today. If you've just tuned in, my name is Dr. Tread Rissacker. And if you want to come in and hear from the source, the real deal, as they say, you're more than welcome to come in for a free consultation. You just have to call the office. Now, listen, my consultation costs $300, but I don't want there to be any barrier to you coming in and finding out whether or not the services I provide, the red light therapy, the whole body vibration, the nutritional and wellness evaluation using science, and also being able to recommend blood work for metabolic health to see your metabolic profile, they call it. And also, if necessary, to refer you to other providers that can help you. Maybe hyperbaric oxygen might be an advantage to you. Maybe it might be going and getting involved with a trainer at Crunch Fitness. I have a relationship with the people at Crunch Fitness. I'm there every Monday for the most part doing a screening. And I know the trainers there, and I can help you get the right program so you can start being healthy if your problem is lack of exercise. My job is to be a guide, to be a teacher, to look at your systems, all the different parts that make up your body, your health, your wellness, and be able to look at what's the most important thing to treat, to address first. We don't treat disease. We address the cause of disease. And then you can have the information and you can make a change on your own so you're not dependent on medicine and your health insurance. And once we determine the most grueling factor in your life that is the most number one you need to fix first, then you might have a shot at fixing other things. I mean, the great analogy is, suppose you had a boat. Suppose I gave you a boat and it was filled with holes, lots of little holes, but there was one really big hole in the middle. Are you going to focus on all those small ones first? No, I mean, you could, but you're not going to, your boat's going to sink. You want to focus on the main problem first. And then as you figure it out, and then you have use of the boat, then you can start fixing all the other smaller problems. And in my opinion, and I've been in practice for 35 years as a licensed chiropractic physician, I'm not a health coach. I'm not a facial specialist. I'm not a massage person. I'm not an RN. You know what I mean? I am a doctor who has dealt with natural health care and found solutions for people for over 35 years. And as a chiropractor, alignment, correcting spinal pathology, helping people with exercises and lifting and, preventing back injuries and helping people, overcome that is just one little part of somebody's real health. What I've learned is, and what I'm experienced is, that metabolic health is like trumps it all. If you got poor metabolic health, you're going to have poor spinal health. If you have poor metabolic health, you're going to have low energy, excess weight gain, eventually leading to type 2 diabetes, a propensity for stroke, a higher incidence of cancer, more chance of having arterial sclerotic plaque or heart disease, not to mention type 3 diabetes, which is called Alzheimer's. The metabolic health is in such a crisis right now that we go to the store, we don't even know where we parked our car or why we went into the store in the first place. They did some studies on this. 80% of the people don't even know their license plate number when they go to the store. 40% don't even know where they parked. And what's really interesting is 25%, when surveyed, didn't even know why they were there. Now, is it that we're overwhelmed with all the information? Is it that we're not focusing on simple things? That's possible. But I can tell you, it has to do with metabolic health. All right. So we are going to define metabolic health as how your body responds to food and to exercise and to overall tissue repair and tissue building. So one of the definitions of metabolism, which leads to, when good metabolism leads to good metabolic health, metabolism is described as your body's ability to tear down tissue that needs to be replaced, and we're always replacing cells, and then the rebuilding of tissue to replace the tissue that's been broken down by the body. So your body is always getting rid of bad old tissue, which has run its life course and needs to be removed by the body. And your body does that by removing it. And it's interesting thing is that if you don't have good metabolism, your body can't do that very well. It ends up collecting a whole bunch of poisons and toxins in the body that accumulate, because every cell in your body has a life cycle. In other words, it has the time when it's created and the time when it dies. It's then replaced with new tissue, new cells. Your tissue cells, your muscle, your nerve cells, your fat cells, well, not so much your fat cells, but the active metabolic tissue that runs your body and moves your muscles and stuff. These cells, when they get damaged, they do not heal. Cells do not heal, okay? When you think of a healing, when you see it, a cut mend itself and knit itself together and eventually the scar goes away, you say to yourself, wow, the tissue healed. Well, what really happened is the tissues that were damaged fell apart. They fell away in the form of white blood cells, pus, and tissue, removal. And then behind that are stem cells. And the stem cells are the precursors of the new cells, which are going to replace the ones which have run their lifespan. It's a natural process. In fact, we can even tell you how many days certain cell lines exist in your body because we know their life cycle. Okay, now you live in a body. Your body is like living in a house that is continually being replaced and repaired every single day. And after 2 years to 7 years, your entire house has been replaced, except for the food in the garage, which is fat cells, and the brain and your teeth. Okay? Brain cells, fat cells, and teeth are never replaced. They're not, you get a certain amount and you have a lot of extras that you can utilize. Fat cells get larger or smaller, but they don't ever die or go away. That's because your creator wanted to make sure that you didn't lose the calories that you so luckily found 2 years ago. In other words, we can bring our calories with us. We don't have to sit by the food and wait for it to come out to eat. We store food. We store calories. So that metabolic ability to do that has a lot to do with tissue being broken down and then tissue being repaired. So let's talk about that really quick. Your lining of your mouth, around your mouth, all the way down through your throat, down through your intestines, out to your rectum, that's called your alimentary canal, your digestive tract. That has a lot of wear and tear in it because as the food moves through, the cells die off. So the entire lining of your intestinal tract, including your mouth, is replaced every 5 days. That's why cuts in your mouth heal so quickly, because there's a huge tissue repair going on because there's a lot of wear and tear there. Your red blood cells, all of your red blood cells are completely replaced every 6 months. You have all new red blood cells. Your skin, that is your largest organ in your body, is your skin. It has to do with detoxification. It protects you as a barrier. It's also what keeps you warm in the winter and cool in the summer. It has all the glands and all the hairs that allow you to know when something is walking on you. The hair is, skin is very extensive. It's replaced every 15 days. You have new skin cells that come in. You're continually sloughing them off when you sleep in bed and in your clothing. These cells are falling off, and new cells are there behind them. Your nervous system, even your brain and your spinal cord, is replaced with nerve cells. Not as fast, but the peripheral nerves, the nerves which emanate from the brain that go down through your spinal cord and go out to your hands and feet, are regenerated. And, every cell in the body has a lifespan, and that has to do with metabolism. So the ability for the body to break those cells down and bring them back into the body and then utilize them as energy has a lot to do with your overall health and wellness, whether or not that fat's going to accumulate, whether the body's going to accumulate these toxins. So since we're always producing poisons as a result of our life, we have to make sure that we've got a great system to get rid of the toxins. Okay, remember, I'm talking about metabolic health here. So remember, to summarize, my name is Dr. Risacker. You're listening to the Slim Body Laser Spa Health and Wellness Show. I'm using low-level lasers, red light devices to help you to body sculpt, to body contour, to get rid of stubborn accumulated fat you've had for many, many years. And at the same time, I do a complete nutritional evaluation and consultation at no charge when you come in for the consult. And I can tell you about your metabolic health. We can give you the body fat percentage markers, your resting caloric intake, how many calories you have to consume to maintain your body. We also can tell you the total body water, how hydrated you are. And I now have a new machine called a digital pulse analyzer, a DPA. And this is a very scientifically FDA cleared device, which measures your arterial stiffness. It tells us how old your arteries are, your vessels. You want to have vessels that are younger than your age. You know, I am 64 years old. When I did my digital pulse analyzer recently, it said I was 54 years old. That's a good thing, showing me 10 years younger. Now, I have done the digital pulse analyzer and tested myself in the past before I made all these metabolic changes in my health, and my vascular age was older than my real age. So this test is something that we can do in the office. It's painless. You put your finger on a pulsometer. It's like a light device on your finger. Leave it on for 1 minute, and it measures your pulse height. It'll give you a printout. That's part of our consultation when you come in. So to summarize, and what we then do is we then have a 3-week program, which you can enjoy the use of the laser, get your body metabolically healed and get it repaired. You can also learn about food, nutrition, the importance of fasting, which I am a huge proponent about fasting, and also how glucose, high levels of glucose, leads to type 2 diabetes, which is leading to poor metabolic health. It's really coming from the sugar and the processed foods we're eating. But first, we got to go over the part about the body is breaking itself down in order to heal itself. So in order to remove toxic material from your body that is run its lifespan, remember, your body's being replaced all the time. You need to make sure that one of the things one of the requirements for health and living is to drink lots of water, because water is what is going to flush out those dead cells and that toxin from your body. If I would love to be able to take all of the flavored drinks out of the market. Now, Robert Kennedy is this guy's going to make all these changes with healthcare. That would be a good spot to start. If you're given all of these flavored waters and these carbonated beverages and these chemicals and dyes that are within those substances, that is not a cleansing approach. Okay, that is a toxic approach to getting the water, the liquid you need. There's a few things man needs: earth, water, fire, and sunlight, and air. And if you're not getting water in its pure form and it's purified and it's clean, you are going to have poor health overall. Your health span will not equal your lifespan for the most part, just because you're not drinking enough fresh water. Water cleans out the gunk. It cleans out the poisons. So that's the first part of good metabolic health, is getting enough H2O. My habit every day, and I've been doing this for many years, I get up in the morning and I have 2 glasses. I like distilled water or purified water. I don't like spring water personally. I think it has minerals, and you just can't control the quality of spring water because it comes from the ground and they're not analyzing it. It could have toxins in it. You don't know. But I like purified water because it's purified through osmosis. I drink 2 red Solo cups, 32 ounces of water. I gulp it in the morning before I even have coffee. I personally don't eat any food till 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon. So I'm going all morning, all lunch, drinking water, because that's a flushing out for me. And I find that helps regulate my blood sugar much easier. So water is critical for improving your metabolism. Okay, you guys, if you're not drinking enough water, don't come to the doctor and expect them to help you. That's it's absolutely critical. You know, don't go into the school and want to learn math and want to learn things, and you're not willing to face the board. You know, you want to turn the other way. And then you're complaining that the teacher didn't teach you anything. And why am I so not smart? Because, well, you didn't look at the board. When you're not drinking water, you guys, there's nothing that doctors can do for you. I really mean that. So number 2 thing with metabolism, and now we're talking about the realization that the body is breaking down tissue in order to make room for new tissue, which is what metabolism is. Number 2, you got to move. You got to exercise every day. Now, you don't have to exercise, but you do have to move. So exercise can be injurious to many people. It can be too strenuous. You could lift too much. You could spend too much of your time exercising. It can create heel spurs. It can create plantar fasciitis in your feet. It can create a lot of things can happen from too much exercise. So I'm not talking about that kind of exercise. I'm talking about the law of movement. You have to move every day. Every joint and every muscle has to be moved through its full range of motion every day in order to be healthy. We move in order to distribute the fluids to the body. If you have a really great meal and you've spent, I don't know, a couple $100 over at Sailor's Return on this meal you have, and you eat that food and then plop down and then don't move around for the next 6 or 7, 8 hours, that food is not distributed as readily as if you were moving around. In other words, the nutrition that goes into the bloodstream through the intestinal wall has to be distributed to all parts of the body. You got to distribute it. That's what movement does. Movement increases circulation, and that increases the flow of fluids through your body, which means you're getting the right nutrition to the cells because you're moving. And that has, that's beside the fact that you want to strengthen your muscles. So movement is critically important for getting rid of the poisons that the water released from the normal tissue metabolism. Okay? So remember, we're in the cleansing phase right now. We're not in the building phase. We're in the cleansing phase. So water and also movement. Number 3 with tissue metabolism is you need oils. You need lubricant in order to have your joints function properly and to be able to rebuild your nervous tissue, your nerves, which are loaded with myelin sheaths. Myelin is fat that helps propagate the nerve impulse very quickly through your body. So this was explained to me just recently by a Chinese acupuncture doctor who's a super smart guy. And, I was like, I knew that, but I haven't been practicing it. So one of the things that is really important is that you're getting enough essential fatty acids, the omega-3s, not the omega-6, not the seed oil, not the fried oils. You need the saturated fats, the butter, the animal fat. You need olive oil. You need coconut oil, MCT coconut oil. You need lecithin, which is sunflower kernel, oil from sunflower seeds, flaxseed oil, omega-3, salmon, avocados. These oils help you to remove and to oil and lubricate the system and allow good nerve function, proper nerve propagation of the nerve impulses from your brain to your body back up to your brain. It's an information superhighway that uses fat to transmit these messages on the outside of the nerve cells. So they're called myelin sheaths. When somebody has multiple sclerosis, which is sclerotic plaquing of those sheaths, or you're having other types of ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, these are conditions of metabolism that have to do with the fat not being distributed properly on the nerves. Yet, have we demonized fat as a whole? In the 70s, it was all about, low fat, low fat, low fat. Get your fruit and veggies. Stay away from fat. Fat creates heart disease. Well, you know what? They've been lying. There was a big lie. They might not have known they were lying at the time, but we know today it's a lie. I hope you listen to this, because protein is really, really important, but not as important as fat. Fat is like critically important. So when you get enough of these good fats, so how do I do it? I try to eat every single day. I have some protein, some good quality protein with some fat. Now, I'm trimming massive amounts of fat. I'm not going to eat more than my BMR, meaning more than my body can handle, but I am going to eat a lot more than most of you would eat fat. So that would be one aspect. I also will eat eggs, a lot of eggs. Eggs are a perfect food because they have albumin, which is protein, and then they have that cholesterol, which is a healthy fat. So eggs are your friend. I also take 2 tablespoons of olive oil, pure virgin olive oil, high-end stuff, every single morning. I also take a tablespoon of lecithin, Lecithin, and you can get it in granules or you can get it in its liquid form. And that's oil from sunflower kernels. So that's an omega-3, super beneficial. I'm also taking omega-3 supplements, and those would be the fish oil supplements. And you want to get high quality. Don't cheap out on your oils. It's so important. So, and oftentimes I would highly suggest that you take those oils after having a meal, because on their own, it can cause a little stomach. I know for me it does. So that's the third thing. So I went over water, I went over movement, and I went over having healthy fats. Okay? Now, this is to accelerate the body's ability to break down the cells and remove them from the body efficiently. Okay? The next one is, this should be no-brainer, is proper sleep. Yeah, man. You detoxify and heal when you go to sleep. All right? Everybody, if you haven't figured that out, when my dog gets sick or any animal, they sleep, they rest. When a human gets sick, they need to rest. You lay down. Why? Because the body's energy is focused on healing and repairing and removing poisons and toxins when you lay down at night, even when you're not sick. This is when the body is getting rid of poisons. And here's an interesting fact about this. By the way, you're listening to Dr. Treadwersacker. I'm here with the Slim Body Laser Spa. I'm on East Ocean Boulevard. I practice metabolic health improvement, and I use red light, low-level laser therapy. We use whole body vibration. We also do a full nutritional consultation using a body impedance analysis, which is a machine which measures your body fat, your resting caloric intake, your total body water, and your muscle tone. I can also do a digital pulse analyzer, which tells you your arterial age. And from those, what we call biomarkers, if you need blood work, I'll send you for the blood work. This is not a spa. Although it's called the laser spa, it's a doctor's office. And you get the benefit of somebody who has a license to recommend those testing, to go over it with you, and then I will direct you into where you need to go if I can't help you with the process I have. And that might be, hormone replacement. I use Dr. Charles Honor, by the way. He's a wonderful MD over on Rio, and he does my hormone replacement when it's necessary. I recommend it. Quest Labs. We do the metabolic profile there, but I use a company called Inside Tracker. Inside Tracker is 41 different aspects of your blood work, mainly metabolic profiles and health, much more than you'd ever get if you went into the hospital with a SMAC with just normal blood work. And from there, once we get that information, then we're going to go over a program, a plan to get you healthy again. And I want you to know something, and I'll say this again and again. I would never in a million years take an Ozempic or Wegovy or tirzepatide. It is treating a metabolic problem with a drug which is physiologically incompatible with healthcare. If somebody's recommending that injection, that pen to you, and you don't come in and at least talk to me at the Slim Body Laser Spa, you do not need that drug. You do not need it. You weren't born lacking Ozempic in your life. This is created by a drug company, a pharmaceutical company that also made Prozac, by the way, called Novo Nordisk over in, I think that's how you pronounce it. And they're in Denmark. And it's, for every person that's been put on Ozempic or tirzepatide or Wegovy, within 3 weeks, most people stop taking it. 30% can't do it because it makes them sick. And also, lots of you out there, if you're over 50 and you're on one of these injection pens, you're destroying your muscle metabolism, which is the only thing that's going to build your metabolism, because you're not burning fat. It doesn't create you to burn more fat, people. You're not burning more fat because you're on Ozempic. You're losing muscle tone and you're losing weight because you can't eat. It's affecting your digestion. And that's your interface with all of your hormones, your enzymes, your whole, I could go on about Ozempic, but listen, this is not an Ozempic. You weren't born without Ozempic. You were born with intelligence. Okay, so my name is Dr. Rissacker. I have the Slim Body Laser Spa. If you want to come in and get that consultation, I'm pushing hard here. I know. I normally don't go on to tell. I had somebody complain. Several people complain that I wasn't giving my information enough, so people didn't know where they could go. And I want you to know, when you come into my office, you will meet with me. Nobody else. Nobody can do what I do. Of course, my staff will sign you in and make sure you have water and give you a little tour of the office. But when I sit down and I ask you questions, I'm a doctor, and I have very good at it. I've been doing this a long time, you guys. 7,000 people, and I can show you my own results of how much it changed my life. I was 265 pounds 12 years ago. Today I weigh 191. I completely improved my metabolic health through red light therapy, whole body vibration, eating the right nutrition foods, and also fasting. I was introduced to fasting by Dr. Jason Fung on TV, on YouTube, and also by Dr. Ekberg, and also Dr. Hyman, Mark Hyman, Callie Means. The internet is full of incredibly intelligent, smart people, completely changing the whole world of metabolic health. And one of the best techniques you can use to restore metabolic health is these natural things that I'm going over: water, exercise, movement, sleep. Sleep repairs the body. And so does mindfulness, meditation, reducing stress, Stop worrying about things you can't change. We're all a victim of that. I know I am. I have to be really careful because I'm intelligent. I says, wow, what's that? That's not good. That's not going to go out well. Well, it's happening in some other place in the world. It doesn't affect me. But what happens is that stress increases your hyperglycemia. It's a fight or flight reflex. Increased stress is preparing you to fight somebody or something. And that means your blood pressure goes up. You empty your bowel because you don't want to fight with a bowel full of poop, as Bonnie and everybody was saying this morning. You want to get to the crapper. And because you're not going to fight with your belly full of food. So that's why your digestion stops when you're under stress. You can't eat. It also cranks up your blood pressure. So you go into the doctor and he checks your blood. He says, oh my God, you got hypertension. What's going on? Well, I pretty happy. I got a good job. I do this. Well, what do you do for a hobby? Well, I watch CNN or Fox News. In other words, I love politics and I like arguing about it. In fact, I like driving my car around and looking for all the problems with everybody else so I don't feel so bad about myself. Buddy, that produces stress, raises your blood sugar, causes your digestion to cease functioning. Serotonin and endorphins go out the door just like a bad smell. They leave you, and you want those good hormones. So stress is, if I had to put everything on, the most valuable thing you can learn here today about metabolism and being healthy, besides food and exercise, and I'm going to go over sunlight in a moment, and also grounding and some of these other things, there is nothing that's as important as maintaining low stress levels. Stress is a human killer. When you're under stress, your body no longer repairs tissue. Your repair system stops. The body's ability to remove those poisons and those toxins that are accumulated, when you're under stress, all of that is put on hold because you got to fight. It's affecting your body's ability to survive. And if you had to take 100% of your time, now there's two nerve systems, there's two systems in the body that are competing with each other. There's the fight or flight, which is the stress response. And then there's the one which is called the feed or breed, which is the healing response. They cannot exist simultaneously, you guys. You can't have high blood pressure and low blood pressure at the same time. You cannot have gastric emptying and gastric fulfillment at the same time. So our body, we're designed of the 100% of the time we're alive, maybe 2 to 3% might be the stress response. In other words, I got to fight right now. And the other 98% or 90% should be feed or breed, the one that tells you to eat, to have high immunity, to have good relationships with people, to sleep good, to not have any kind of emotional upheavals. And this produces endorphins, serotonin. It upregulates your genetic code so your body is more healthier and can protect itself from germs and viruses and bacteria. This all comes from the low stress. When you go high stress, everything of that stops working. Your immune system takes a hit because you got to fight. You need blood clot. You need thick blood to fight. You don't want to have a cut and bleed out because your blood's too thin. And we know that thick blood creates health problems if it's done all the time. So that's another improvement of metabolic health is going to come by reducing stress. Exercise does reduce stress somewhat, but mindfulness and meditation and remove yourself from the stressful parts of your life is more effective than anything else you could possibly do. Is just walk away. Refuse to be part of it. Now, I know we have people that live in our house and things we have to fight over or we're dealing with, but leave. You got to get out. When I get in a little spat with my spouse, I leave. I just step outside. I'm not going to go round and round on that merry-go-round. I just step outside and sit down and pray a little bit, take some deep breaths. And, I'm not going to stay there and keep fighting. Not going to happen. Rarely does that ever happen to me, by the way. I have a wonderful relationship. Just using that as an example. So here's the next one. So we're talking about metabolism, and the way you boost metabolism is stop destroying your metabolism. So the first one was drinking water, moving the body so we can distribute the poisons and get rid of the stuff. And then, of course, we have stress reduction. And now we have to do with what they call, and we have the light. We need to apply light to our body. So we live in a world, our bodies and our whole metabolic systems are light dependent. They need all the different wavelengths of sunlight that appear naturally to be put into our body. We were born in light. Light is what gave the plants carbohydrate and gives it the energy. We eat the plant to release the sunlight into our body in the form of starch. The animal eats the plants also, makes protein with amino acids and proteins. We eat the proteins and we release the sunlight. So the circle of life is the sun. And we also have mitochondria, which are the powerhouses, the batteries of your cells. The mitochondria respond to sunlight just like a solar cell, like a solar voltaic cell, those solar panels. They put that chemical in the panel and then the sunlight hits it and it turns it into electricity and we can store it in a battery. Well, that sunlight goes through your body and stores electricity in your mitochondria, and then your mitochondria turn it into energy in the form of ATP, and that's how it powers your body. We're like little solar cells walking around, and when we don't get enough sunlight, your solar cells can't generate the same amount of energy, and your batteries start to get weak. I'm not making this stuff up, man. This is science, hard science. So the best way to get sunlight on your body is, I'm going to tell you right now, you have to be careful of high overhead sunlight, the blue light. If you go out after 11 o'clock in the morning, right up to about 4, that light is very high intensity blue light, and you should limit your exposure to that. For some of you, maybe less than 10 or 20 minutes a day. Now, if you're sunlight adapted and you're used to it and you have a nice tan and your skin is, and you're healthy in other ways, you can stay out in the sun a lot longer. The sun is not the killer of humanity. Poor metabolism is the killer of humanity. Sunlight is just doing its job. So I get 20 minutes of sun every single morning from daybreak up till about 9 or 10 o'clock. I move my chair around, try to get it in it. I don't get it every day, but I get it a lot. And then at the end of the day, I'll go out at 5, 6 o'clock and I get that evening sun. And that is super important. And here's another thing. Blue light shuts down your immune system. Blue light creates high blood sugar. Blue light creates overall sickness and disease in humans. And your cell phone, unless you have it adapted to the lower shades of color, it's giving you those toxins through your phone and through the face that you're looking at, through your computer screens, through your TV, and through your iPhones, unless you put those blue blockers on there. This is not something that's maybe. This is not me making something up. This is factual knowledge, and you need to listen and pay attention. All right. I know I've gone over a lot today, My name is Dr. Rissacker. If you want to come in and have a free consultation to see if I can help you with metabolic health, getting rid of fat, helping you with fasting, tell you your body fat ratios, your resting caloric intake, your total body water, and recently your vascular age, which is really important, you got to give me a call, man. Dr. Tread, Slim Body Laser Spa. I'm not going to say my phone number because you can find it with my name.
30 seconds.
TRED. And the T is for terrific.
20.
Dr. Tread. Listen, have a fantastic week. You know, there's a lot of great things happening. Pray for our country and the health and the safety of everybody involved. We're going through some challenges. So I appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you soon at the Slim Body Laser Spa.
That is a wrap.